cyborg super soldiers who want simple lives. Really? Okay. What inspired you to create it? Why did you create it?
It was a very long process over many years. The way it started was actually completely irrelevant to how it ended up. It started with me and my friends were playing a board game, which some of your listeners may remember in the UK. It was a Hero Quest, yes, by Milton Bradley. In that, it's a fantasy game. You're doing a dungeon crawl. You've got your typical characters, barbarians, dwarves, rangers, all that stuff. But you've got a character sheet to keep track of all the treasure that you accumulate, all your skills and stats, etc. And it invited you to make a coat of arms for your character. Now, in that, I drew a wee character. It was a bulbous head, wire-thin arms, which itself was inspired by a panel in a Calvin and Hobbes strip. It's the strip where Calvin writes his own story for his dad to read him as a bedtime story. And it's all about this wee kid, of course him, getting revenge on his horrible, abusive father, who he locks in the basement and he has to stay there eating gruel and worms for the rest of his life. And he drew it, he illustrated it, and the character looked kind of like what I did for my coat of arms. A bulbous head, big round eyes, a downturned mouth, and wire-thin arms. And that's how it started. It was just a daft little sketch. But later on, I fleshed out that particular image, and I used it as a hit location template for an RPG that my friends and I were playing a couple of years later. And because it was a sci-fi game we were playing, and it has kind of like a cyber goth stylish to it, I gave that character a jacket, a long coat, and I fleshed out the rest of his body so you saw what the rest of him looked like, and I gave him a heavy pistol in his hand for the hit location template, just to make it look more appropriate to the setting. And as I started using that character more and more, I did it from different angles to say, like, here's your hit location template when you're shooting face on, here it is from the side, here it is from behind cover. And then I started thinking, maybe I could put this character in more and more situations. And I started thinking of a background story for him and what he might actually be. And over the years, I was just thinking, but not really drawing much. And I started thinking about what this character would look like. And then I thought that this head that he's got, this bulbous head with the big round eyes, would be like a helmet. And inside there's a real person, but it's constrained. And the mask that he has on the outside is like what he's showing to everyone, but on the inside is something very, very different. And he seemed like a very tragic character, but I thought over time, maybe he's a bit too tragic. And I thought, what would it be like if he takes off this helmet and he's suddenly unconstrained and he starts to enjoy life a bit more? He can feel the wind in his face, he can experience things, smell things, taste things. He'd become a bit more happier. And then I thought, it's an interesting contrast. But the version of him when he had the mask off was so much more interesting than when he had the mask on. So I thought, let's ditch this mask idea entirely and keep the mask off. So then we're left with a character which I have now in the story. I gave him a proper looking body. It's no longer wire-thin limbs. There's a very, very crude cybernetic body, is how I imagined it. But then I made it proper. I made it just like he looks like a regular humanoid. And he had a few interests. I decided to project onto this character a few of the interests that I had at the time. So my character is a professional b-boy, whereas I was amateur. I just did it myself as part of working out because I genuinely enjoyed dancing. And that made him quite interesting because it's something that I don't often see in comics, pastimes like that related to dancing. Certainly not b-boys. I don't think I've ever seen a b-boy character. You see characters in fighting manga and comics like who do capoeira, which is a big influence on breakdancing, but none who are specifically b-boys that I've found. And when I always had my best brainstorming sessions when I was driving to and from work, and I'd be listening to music, and it's kind of music that you can dance to, and that helped form the character because I had those kind of rhythms in my head, those kind of images, and it started to filter more into this character and their outlook, and thus the character KZ407 was born.
Okay.